If you heard me talk about how I heart art last week, you may have recognized the fact that I mentioned one of the big reasons why I switched to European comics is that the art was, I don't know if I want to say the art was better. I don't think I came straight out and said Europeans make better art than North Americans, because that would be patently untrue. It's different art, and there are better artists in both places, and it's a matter of personal taste and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not trying to start an intercontinental flame war right here, but there is a certain unfair advantage to European comics that I have as a North American that maybe those who grew up in Europe don't have. And that is, it's all new to me. And because it's new to me, I have my pick of the litter. There's however many years, 60, 70 years of European comics out there, and all the best of the classics have remained in print all the while. A lot of modern, what could be modern classics, are in print today, and Europe Comics is busy translating the books they think would appeal to an English-speaking audience the most on a monthly basis. So when I go to isneo.com and take a look at the new releases every month, I see some really great comics. When I take a look at the books that have stayed in print all the while, Asterix and Lucky Luke and all the rest. Okay, maybe Lucky Luke was relatively recent. Cinebook has been publishing those. Before Cinebook, it was a bit more hit and miss. There were a few albums that were out there, but never the whole, 80 books and counting that Cinebook has for us, thankfully. But all of those classics are in print today. And it's relatively speaking cheap, as opposed to creating an entirely new book, relatively cheap to translate an existing book into English, get a new script, do the new lettering, package it up, and ship it out. So yes, European comics have definitely that unfair advantage of the fact that I'm probably only seeing, I know I'm not seeing all of the best stuff. I know there's still great stuff out there that hasn't been translated for whatever various reasons they may be. I mean, Francois Skyton's work is only slowly coming back into print right now after Fantagraphics had their books published in the 90s and early 2000s. But it's only now that IDW is going through the process of reprinting all those and new ones we haven't seen in North America so far. So there's still lots more stuff out there to be seen, but when you look at, 1,000 books that might be out there on isneo.com, and yes, on Amazon.com's Kindle Comics store that might have a Comixology label on it, if you look at it in the right way, you're going to see mostly great books. They're not publishing for the sake of publishing to hit this month's deadline. They're publishing the stuff they think will hit the hardest. So yes, I am indeed completely and utterly spoiled by the riches of European comics that are available to me now that all my life have not been available. Some of them hit and miss have been here and there. Even Valerian got a few books published in the 80s and translated there. The Mobius Blueberry books were being published by Marvel Epic in the 1980s, and that didn't last terribly long, and that's been out of print for 30 years ever since then. Asterix had a couple of goes at it until a British publisher picked it up, I don't know, probably 20, 25, maybe 30 years ago, before those books started coming overseas to America. Lucky Luke I mentioned previously. I have a Lucky Luke album that was done by the previous publisher that's got to be, 30 years old. It's definitely pre-computer lettering, so it's got to be at least 20 years old, probably closer to 25 or 30. All of these books have tried to come to the American market and never lasted long enough. Paper Cuts is finally bringing Asterix to American print. And they're going to have the entire series in print in America for the first time ever, really. It's a great advantage that the European comics have, and I am going to take full advantage of it. And along the way, I will continue to read books out of North America that also have great art in them, and that also have great stories. I don't mind those things. I'm relying mostly on other people's reviews of those books, though, because I can't read them all. I barely have time for the European comics sometimes. So please, everyone out there reading those North American comics, let me know what the good stuff is. Keep me up to date. I do, indulge in the Comixology sales occasionally and pick up the classics that are reprinted. Classics that maybe I bought in my earliest days of comics reading, and some that were available before then that I know are classics. But, there's always new stuff coming out that might be good that's not necessarily the latest and greatest, biggest crossover event. I don't want those anymore. I'm fine with a 6 or 12 issue run. Unfair advantage. European comics have them absolutely for sure, just because we have so much to catch up on. Eventually, maybe 20 years from now, we'll have caught up on all that stuff and they'll start printing the really awful, crappy stuff. By then, I'll be nostalgic for the books I read in 2017, and I'll just go back and reread those. That's just the circle of comics life. Thank you all for listening. I'm Augie the Bleak Jr., and I'll talk to you again real soon.